Okay, that looks better. I think that fixed it. I'm not sure though. There's no more flash. There's a black bar, but there's no more flashing. Does that look good from your guys' end? And yes, on Twitch it says I'm playing Homestuck because it wanted me to put in a game if I wanted to name my stream, but it's like it wouldn't accept I'm reading Homestuck questions because apparently that's not the name of an actual game, but apparently Homestuck is. So yeah, looks good. Cool, awesome. Let's do this. Where was I? This one. Dahni, do you think a character could invert then activate trickster mode or vice versa? I think trickster mode kind of is its own thing. Like once you get into that, you don't get out of it until you stop being in trickster mode. So it's entirely possible for them to go trickster mode, do their crazy thing, like, and then come down from the high, and then do anything they want to, and then go on and invert and stuff, because that's technically what Jane did. Like she had her little fun roll in the sack, and then she turned into Bard of Doom Jade. Jane, not Jade, sorry. Yeah. That's what Jane did. But if a character could invert and then activate trickster mode, I think that's also possible, but I just think the trickster mode would just overwrite the inversion process, and then afterwards they would just get dumped right back where they were in the first place. Yeah. So I don't think they would like interact at all. I think like the character inverting would be one thing, and then whenever trickster mode happens would just overwrite that while it was happening, and then go back to where it was after it's done. Hey Dahni, could you explain some personality differences between Hope, Light, and Heart players? Reworking your own god tier, generally confused. I'm supportive and encouraging like Hope, value knowledge and information like Light, very in tune with my emotions like Heart. Space also kind of calls to me, I just don't know anymore. That's because you're looking at like aspects versus who you are as a person right now. Like obviously everyone is going to be knowledgeable and supportive and encouraging and in tune with their emotions and like creative. It's like, that's fine. That's all. Like, every person can be every single one of these things currently. That's cool. But your god tier isn't that for that reason. Your god tier is not based on your current self. It's based on your own future knowledge sense. That's a weird way of wording it. It's based on your own future idea of a person that you want to become. Your own personal perception of perfection. Say that 5 times fast. Personal perception of perfection. But yeah. Your own ideal of something that you want to be in the future, like your ideal perfect self, and the main traits that accompany that idea of perfection in your own mind. Like, all of the other stuff, like, it'd be like, okay, cool, it could probably be that, but that's not the most important thing. The most important thing would be X trait, and that's the god tier trait that you would base your god tier off of. So, and there's more ways to do that. Question, am I ready for the finale? Nope. I'm never ready. You'll never be ready for the finale of Homestuck. Alright, next one. The first of the Digimon Tri movies is out for one year con. Yes, more Digimon Tri stuff has been out, and I just haven't had the time to watch all that stuff, because I have 3 weeks left of my my school, and if Homestuck does, like, update on April 13th, it'll be, like, right in the middle of my last work week. So I'll be like, oh, damn it. I don't know if I'll be able to get to the update, like, immediately as I want to. Would a mage of blood be good at seeing figurative connections between different subjects? Like someone who's really good at seeing how things are alike or tied together. As a knowledge class blood player, that seems like something a mage of blood could be able to do. Yeah, totally. One of those boards people put on their walls with a bunch of pictures connected by red strings. Could a mage of blood suffer by making connections that aren't there, or would this be more of a mind thing? Again, with the suffering. So if you just ignore all that, like, this is cool. This is all good. That's exactly what a mage of blood could probably do. And if you want to do that, that's totally up to you. But again, with the suffering thing, I really regret saying that now, because it's just been, like, going into all of my class spec stuff, and it's like, no. I have to fix it. I still have to rewrite I think it's because I still have to, like, edit the mage descriptions in my big class spec post, but it's so hard to edit those things because they're huge. Yeah. But no, that's good. That's entirely what a mage of blood would be able to do. They're very good at seeing connections and understanding what the meaning is behind those connections. Can you tell us more about the dream self system? Do dream and real selves share souls, or are they separate? What happens when one of your self dies? I mean, with souls, where is the difference between them? More about their mechanic. I mean, your theories about what you assumed after reading Homestuck. I think it's pretty, like, self-explanatory in the comic. Like, it's just a real-life version of the video game mechanic of having backup lives. That's the gameplay influence from that. But dream selves are basically your subconscious and unconscious mind. It's you when you are asleep. It's like if your mind is your waking self, your dream self is your sleeping self. And this has some canon stuff like to back it up too, with how Rose and Dave were acting as their dream selves when dream selves were first introduced. But I always thought that the dream self was kind of like a vague draft one version of like the kind of person you are in your God tier. When you have no inhibitions, you are the perfect way you are imagined, because dream selves can be changed based on how they view themselves, and that's why Terezi was still blind. But I think that's why Tabros like had legs and stuff while he was a dream self. I can't remember about that. But it was based on the ideal version of their self with no inhibitions and just the way that they are naturally and everything. So it's like a draft one, like, way you would be if you were a God tier kind of thing. It's also reflective of the whole concept of having a main role and a sub role. So you have your own God tier, and then you have sort of a dark opposite, which is the sub role, which is the thing that you would act like if you were to invert. It's just meant to be like a yin yang kind of system. But as for your actual questions, do they share souls or are they separate? I'm pretty sure they're separate. Just like all instances of a person in Homestuck, each one is separate. So I think they would all have like different lives, different souls, different this and that, etc. And they can be killed separately from each other too. Like you can kill your real self and have your dream self not be affected for a while. You can kill your dream self and have your real self not be affected for a while. It takes a while for them to sync up and do the thing. But yeah, what happens when one of your selves die? I mean, with the souls, the same thing that happens usually in Homestuck. What was it? Like, if one of them dies, the other one starts to die very quickly, and you gotta, like, throw them on the God tier place before the second one dies via the connection. And you God tier if you succeed, and you don't if you don't. But other than that, like, there's not really much of a difference between them. It's just another instance of a person. It's Mario and his 3 extra lives, you know, like, there's not much more to their mechanic. It's not really like a thing, I guess. Yeah. But yeah. So I have a question about aspects. Considering they're supposed to represent everything, which one do you think would deal more in tropes and narrative, or would that be more than one? So like stereotypes, so like repetitive patterns in people and like narrative and storytelling and that kind of thing. I would say time. Because time is repetitive patterns and repeating cycles and like stuff being used over and over and over again, which is basically what a trope and a cliche is. But I also connected them to the idea of storytelling because narrative flows in the same way that time does. It's a sort of a similar idea. You have a beginning, middle, and an end. You have events that happen all the way out through it, just like sort of a timeline. And there's also Caliborn, like his favorite thing to do, like was mess with the narrative and create his own story and that kind of thing. It was like the other side of art in comparison to space being like physical art, like pictures or sculptures or like art, you know what I mean? Like versus literature, which is more of a time thing. And I remember thinking about this before, how it was like an interesting parallel. If time had narrative and storytelling and writing, and space had like sculpture and painting and like pictures and this kind of thing, then space has the timey art and time has the spacey art, which is weird to say, but let me explain it. So everything that space stands for is a single frame or a single snapshot that can connect to each other. Like a picture doesn't move, or a sculpture doesn't move. You only have a single frame or a snapshot of where it is. Versus time being storytelling and narrative, it's always changing. It's always going from one word to the next, from one sentence to the next, from one paragraph to the next. It's always continuing to go and to grow and to change and to flow and this and that and the other thing. So I just thought it was like an interesting sort of mix-up connection kind of thing between time and space. That one has like more traditional forms of art and one has more storytelling narrative. So, but to answer your question, time. That would be time. What quiz do you recommend to get your class back? I don't recommend a quiz. I think that's the wrong way of going about doing it. I think the only correct way, really, to do it is to have some self-reflection, is to just think about it on your own, but not think about yourself as, like, what kind of person am I? Don't do that, because that's thinking about your current self. That's not what God tier is. You have to think about your future self. You have to think about my goals, like, where do I want to go in life? Like, what kind of person do I want to become? Not just what I am right now, but what kind of person do I want to become? Which traits do I value the most? Which traits do I just see the most worth in having, and which ones do I want to emulate and grow into myself? And on the flip side, which traits do I want to get rid of? Which traits do I not value? Which traits do I see as like, that's just not me. I don't want that. And that would be like an inversion. And it's like thinking about both of those things, if you can find some kind of connection between the two, you can find out your God tier doing that. Yep. But that's why I say I don't like quizzes, because it's just fundamentally, I think, the wrong way of going about this kind of thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah, sure explains Caliborn's terrible art to Callie's lovely style. Yeah. I feel like Metaton is Eridan in this scenario. I don't know what that's referencing. I forget the context of that question. Probably something Undertale Homestuck. How do you think a person's God tier would match with their true will? Do you think the first would be a description of the latter, or do you think that would be unlikely to correspond? I would need a better definition of what you mean by true will first before I answer that question, but you're anonymous and you're not here, so I doubt I'm going to get that. I'm going to guess at what you mean by true will. True will is a person's own choice and, like their own... I don't know. How do I word this? What do you mean by true will? It's just a person's own, like, fate and destiny that they take into their own hands and go forward and off they go and, you decide your own fate kind of thing. And I think that kind of goes hand in hand with the God tier, because the God tier is just a natural progression of, like, that choice of who do I want to become. And if you make that solid choice, it's a solid thing, but you still have to make that choice, which means it could be any number of things before you know. And Suburb just has a way of knowing what choice you would make before you would make it, because timeline bullshit. That's all. Hey, private question. Whoops. Damn it, it's already on the screen. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to hide that. Do you just by chance would answer if I'm truly a classmate if I told you my basic personality? I think I've already just literally talked about this, and no, that's not how I do things. Sorry. You're really lucky to have never experienced temperatures above 40 degrees Celsius. It happened a few times where I live, and people died. Yeah, I'm in Canada. We don't get temperatures that high. Like, I start to explode around 30 degrees Celsius. Like, that's when I start to die, and that's, like, usually the highest we get in the summer. I think the record high that we ever had was, like, in the middle of summer, and it was, like, there was, like, a heat wave at the same time in this week, and it was, like, 33 degrees Celsius, and it was awful. It was so awful. I hate it. I'd much rather have a cold winter. Because, you can put so many layers on, as many layers as you want to warm up in the winter, but you can't, like, there's only so many layers you can remove in the summer, and then you just go around naked, and you're still friggin' hot, and it's awful. Temperatures. I need a second opinion to decide my class spec, but for that I need to know you'd be willing to read a very long text explaining the reasons why I'm in doubt and have considered what I've considered. I'll understand if not, though. I have a tendency to want to change it. Yeah, I just don't do these on principle because, I feel it's supposed to be a self-reflection thing. Like, you're supposed to just take what you know about Homestuck and the aspects in the God tier system and reflect upon that yourself. I don't like doing this for other people, especially because I know people value my opinion on things really highly, so I don't ever want to, override someone's own, choice about themselves, you know what I mean? Because they are going to take whatever I say into account, but the problem is I can't tell you the kind of person that you want to become because I don't know you. I can give you any sort of, random guess or, clarification of things that you want, but I can't tell you what God tier you're going to have. I just feel it's fundamentally a wrong way of doing that. You know what I mean? Even just because I know people do value my opinion on things, and that's why they ask me these questions, but, I feel like if I do that, I don't want to override someone else's will about these things, you know what I mean? So I just feel like it's a wrong way of doing that. Oh, is it March Eridan? Oh, for frick's sakes. Oh, that's the context. I just got the context for that other question. It's March Eridan. Oh, my goodness. Okay, next question. You have often said that pages at their higher level embody their aspect, and you've also said that a page of life final form could be something like a werewolf related to animals or plants, but I think that the true potential of a page of life could be something more similar to a supernova, an explosion of energy that can't be contained or restricted. That's entirely possible. That was just one example of what a page of life could do, but, there's all kinds of number of things, and if you can make it make sense in the terms of, the class and the aspect, then you can do it. Like an explosion of energy that can't be contained or restricted, that's a supernova. That's cool. werewolves or like someone exploding into plant life, someone exploding into like this all-powerful physical form, that's another expression of a page of life's like final form, quotation marks. But anything you can come up with is a way that you can do it. Not necessarily every page of life will do it the same way. If the total amount of energy that the human body uses along its life was liberated at the same time, it would be an explosion 100 times bigger than the strongest nuclear bomb. Oh, that's cool. That's what I imagine when I think of the entire potential of life being applied at the same time. Yeah, but if they did that, they would die. I don't think it's supposed to happen when you reach your full potential as a life player. I know that explosions are related to doom due to relations to bombs and fire, but honestly, can you think of something more energetic, unrestricted, and chaotic than an explosion? But no, that's totally, like, rational. Like, that kind of, this idea, that would work for a page of life or a page of doom. That's true. But it's not really, like, these things aren't restricted to singular things that only this could ever happen. That's not what ClassPact is. It's constricted to, like, a general umbrella or idea of ideas, right? But it's not constricted to any singular one specific thing. If you can come up with an example that works for it, then you can use it. I just come up with, like, you know, random ideas here and there, but that's necessary. Just because I come up with it doesn't mean that's the only thing that could happen. Oh, there's a big one. I'm still confused about the night page thing. In one of your posts, you said the page would be like the natural conduit for their aspect, using the aspect and make it manifest as it naturally would, while apparently on that last post you stated that knights have this skeleton key-shaped aspect. They can make it work on any door, so to speak. So let's say there's a knight and a page of heart. A page would have to understand why they should feel some way, or why they should care about someone, while a knight could go like, hey heart, feel like this, snaps a finger, and they can make someone... No, that's more of a witch. That's a changing thing. Let's say there's two people who need to work together in a session. A page would have to see that and try to make them work together in a relationship or something, while a knight could again just make the two people get together, work together based on their unique roles and abilities, kind of applying two hearts together for a determined purpose. Yeah, the thing is, like, it's not that a knight can just force it to happen, it's that a knight knows how it can happen. Like, a page could see two people and see that their personalities are very, very different and think, well, you know what, they can't work together, they're just not similar enough. But a knight can go the extra mile, so to speak. They can see those two people, and they will keep at it and keep trying and keep trying and trying until they find an avenue where they can connect. And that's what I mean by, like, a knight can sort of, like, even the most, like, nonsensical, like, this shouldn't work, like, what? Like, no, but they find the logical way for it to work. Whereas the pages, they have all this experience and they can do all these things, but, like, a fish still has to live in water kind of thing, you know what I mean? Like, a knight might be able to make some kind of, like, crazy contraption of, like, you know, like a life hack where it's like, oh, you can, like, put pipes on the walls and it can swim up the walls in the water and this kind of thing, but, like, I don't know how to explain. This is very difficult to explain. I'll just keep reading. It's my theory of why Pia does the shipping. She tries to relocate feelings and souls together to change the way they can be applied. Yeah, that makes sense. Also, the reason I submitted this is I have a theory of why Void and Heart players get along. Yeah, Void and Heart. Whatever you want to think about that, that's cool. But yeah, the knight and the page thing. It's because the power that I give them, that I think about it, is application. Like, I've got so many posts trying to, like, because I picture it in my head perfectly. I think in pictures. This is a problem with me. I think in, like, video and pictures, and I can see it happening in my head, and trying to translate that into words is, like, the most frustrating thing. I feel like I'm a non-English speaker. But I give knight and page application. And the way I see it, active and passive, is passives have more intuitive knowledge of their aspect, and they can make it do things the way they were meant to happen, and active classes have less knowledge but more power and control and can force their aspect to do things that normally it wouldn't happen. So if application is, like, sort of like meshing things together and it's like doing with the function of how things work, like if you were to apply, quotation mark, a book, you would read the book. If you were to apply a door, you would open and close the door. Like, it's difficult because the function of what you are actually doing as application depends on the situation. So it's hard to think about it in hypotheticals. If you gave me a solid, like, example, I could explain this better, but it's difficult. You can't really think about it hypothetically the way you can with the other ones. Let's see. Trying to think of something that give me a way of explaining it. Okay, let's take a car, for instance, all right? Cars are driven. Let's say the car is the aspect, and the driving it is the applying part, all right? So what a page could do is, they're a great driver. They can drive it anywhere. They can drive it up roads. They can, like, they know how to move it. They know, they could be like a racer. They know how the car functions inside and out, and they know every single thing about the car. They know every little thing about the car. They know it. And they know how to, like, move it just because they have their own experience working with the car. You know what I mean? Like, they've had lots of crashes in their life. They've tried and failed and tried and failed and tried and failed, and now they've built up enough experience that they know how to apply and use the car anywhere at all, and in any way. They can drive anywhere. A knight is the same idea, but they have more active control and less intuitive understanding of the car. So they may not necessarily understand how every little single part works because they've never had to deal with every single little part the way a page has, but they can do more with the car just for their own, like, obsessive efforts and obsessive talents in driving the car. They could find a way to drive a car uphill or up a building. Somehow, some way, they could make the car do a thing that it wasn't meant to do. Or they could use a car as a table, or they could use a car as, like, something not to be driven, but they could flip over the car, or they could take apart the car and use bits and pieces of it to do other things, but they could do more with the car than just drive it. A page sees a car and thinks, oh, I can drive this all over the place. A knight sees a car and thinks, I can drive it, I can use it as a table, I can use it as a roadblock, I can crash it, I can do any number of things with it. I may not necessarily know how every single part of the car works, but I know what I can do with it. Versus a page who's like, well, I know what a car does, and I know how to drive a car in any number of million ways, but a car is to be driven. That's what you do with the car. You drive it. Does that make sense? Like, have I explained that right? Because that's how I basically see it. Like, a knight isn't limited to the function that comes with the object. A page is, but a page can use that function better. Like, a page might be a better driver than a car. Or a page might be a better driver than the knight in this situation. But the knight can do more things with the car than the page can. Does that make sense? Because I feel like that's the best way I'm going to explain it. And I feel like I'm going to rewatch this later and write down what I said. I'm so glad I'm recording. Yeah, I haven't seen any March Eridan stuff ever, and I've been in the fandom for a while. I mostly avoided that. So Dahni, when can we expect the crowning achievement of your blog, the Waste Class Master List? Soon. It'll be an update gift. No. Yeah. That's how I'm going to explain the knight in the page. We're using that very specific example of the car, because that's how I understand it. Hey, sorry, I kept looking for another hour and found it. Sorry to waste your time. No, it's okay. I don't remember what this was about, but it's alright. No need to apologize for anything. Okay, this is going to sound slightly weird, but what's your personal experience with being a classpact witch? If it's really personal stuff, feel free to answer in private. Well, no, I've talked about this before, so I don't really mind. Like, I always saw myself as, like, a witch of light, like, when reading Homestuck, because, like, I got the inversion stuff, like, I was really quick to pick up on that, and I realized that I was a person who was inverted, at the time, into, like, a seer void, like, because that's the things when I first read Homestuck, I was super connected with, was, like, the seer and the voidy stuff, and I realized that reflected my current self. But I also realized that, because I'd already done self-reflection at this point in time, so I was used to the idea that the way that my current self was not very a healthy mindset. I was very depressed, I was very, like, upset, and I was very, like, just not in a place where I wanted to be. And as I continued to read Homestuck and got more understanding of the way opposites works and figured out what the opposite of, like, a seer would be a witch, which was solidified pretty much by what just happened to be Rose. I was very lucky that Rose was the example as the seer-witch duality, so I got that the opposite of a seer would be a witch character. And then the light and void stuff, thankfully, was very heavily symbolism in Homestuck as well, so I got that the opposite of void would probably be light. So, connecting that together, I figured my class spec where I'm the happiest and healthiest and, like, where I want to be in the future is probably a witch of light. And as I thought about that class spec in combination with each other, like with the god tier, the class, the aspect itself, and I connected that to the characters that I already seen, so the light players in Homestuck and the witch players in Homestuck. Like, even though a lot of them are, like, very negative associated, like Irania, Vriska, Heferi, Damara, Jade is like, I connected more to Jade than anything else, I would say, as a witch character. Well, no, Jade and like Fairy, and I could see myself in Damara as well. So I knew I was a witch pretty much. But that was the way, just like how I, like the kind of attitude that I wanted was very much like in witch-like character. The attitude that I wanted to build for myself. And the things that I want to focus on, the things that give me like happiness and like meaning and like stuff like that is light, meaning, enlightenment, clarity, and just, you know, finding a way to get rid of like the mental fog in my head and that kind of stuff. So I don't know, I just thought about it for a very long time, and almost everything that I could think about in my life connected back to the Claspect. So it seems like Witch of Light is pretty like solidified for me in my head as the kind of person that I would want to become. And that just naturally like flew into my idea of what my land class would be as well, which is the Land of Fog and Reflection. I have like a post actually describing like what my land would be like and stuff, because it's kind of cool. But yeah, that's kind of like my own personal experience. It was just reading Homestuck and connecting to the various characters and discovering that, hey, you know what, that's the kind of person that I want to be when I'm like better, you know? Yeah. So that's how I, yeah. Everyone who first reads Homestuck thinks the witch is Rose and not Jade, even without knowing exactly what any of that meant. She was very with, like, for a while, I believe. Yeah, that's intentional, because Hussey was really, like, setting up those two as to be examples of different kinds of inversion. Like, Rose, as a passive player, actually a seer, inverting to an active player would have a lot more of it, like, an active inversion. Like, it would be more forceful and explosive and just more active in nature. Versus Jade, who is a witch, but has more of, like, a seer inversion. She has a passive inversion, so it's not something that's, like, as in your face as Rose's was, but it's something that's still there in a very subtler way. Yeah, Jade was very seer-like in the early story as well. Next one. Upon closer inspection, I realized that the 12 archetypes theory I referred to in my previous ask was from Pixie Sticks rather than Claspect's ask. Whoops. Oh, yeah, I don't know what this is referring to, I forget, but cool. I would like to know what kind of god tiers a few of the characters of Harry Potter would have, both adult and kid. I don't need very detailed god tiers, just what type they would be. Yeah, I think I was saving that ask, actually. There's another one. It was like Claspect the Harry Potter characters, and that's like a project, you know what I mean? Like, that's something I have to sit down and work on for a day if I wanted to do that, so don't worry, I'm going to do that. I don't know when, because my time is very limited right now, currently, but that is something I would like to do, because I do like Harry Potter. Your idea about the see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil is on point. Thanks! I forget what this is referring to, too, because it was 4 months ago, but cool. Thanks very much. Hi, do you know a place I can check for land of insert subject here and insert subject here type stuff? So, like, an idea of, like, lists of words and stuff, or? I don't know, actually. I just thought of, like, the words as they related to the aspects and, like, the problem and solution idea that I came up with. Yeah. My suggestion is Google some. Any word you can think of can work. I don't think there's any rules about, like, you can't use certain type of words. Well, they have to be nouns. And that's the only rule. Like, just have to be nouns. So if you just, like, Google list of nouns, like, that mean things, I think that would work. Other than that, I don't really have, like, an actual, like, resource for you there. An overlooked positive thing about the Doom aspect, Doom players are the sort of people who are able to work exactly within the rules. A Doom player is exactly who you want around when you have a very small margin for error. Yes, that's a good point. Another example is that they had a seemingly negative sky vision. A Doom player would probably be able to work things out so that the vision happened as it appeared to be, but in a context that made it harmless, seeing someone injured and having some healing items handy. That's an extremely good point. If you're in a situation where you have an extremely small margin for error, a Doom player is your hero. For sure. Life just wouldn't work there in that situation, doing whatever you want. But if you had to work within very strict parameters, very strict rules, if you 1 foot out of place would make a bomb explode, like, Doom player would be able to do that, no problem. That's a very great positive thing about Doom aspect. Could you please do a quick analysis of a Self of Mind? I have already done a quick analysis of a Self of Mind, and that is in my Mind post. The reason I keep saying that when I come upon questions like these is because like I feel like I'm just rehashing the same stuff over and over and over again when I do this. Because someone will talk to me, can you do a quick analysis on a self of mind? And I'll go, sure, and I'll do that. And then 10 asks later, I'll be like, can you do a quick analysis on a self of mind? And I'll go, sure, I've done that already, but sure. And I just end up repeating myself, and that's why. So if I've already talked about it, I'll just say, oh, I've already talked about it. It's in a post on my blog somewhere, and I can help you find it later if you ask again, because I'll forget. Food for thought. I know I asked in the live stream, but these are my full thoughts on sylphs being active and maids being passive as food for thought. If you'd prefer I not posit ideas toward you, that's okay. Just send me a message. I don't mind people sending me their ideas, but I just can't necessarily agree. Say I'm going to agree with them because, for instance, I do not agree with sylphs being active and maids being passive. It's just one instance. I think there was something else that somebody sent me too. How like people are always sending me witch sylph stuff and saying that the witch is a passive pair is actually the sylph and like this and that. And I don't deny that there's like tiny bits of evidence for that. My problem is there is mountains of evidence for witch seer instead. Or sorry, witch seers and witch heir instead. Like there's just so much more to suggest that sylph specifically is the passive counterpart of the maid. I mean, like, both are healers as one. Like both are the feminine classes associated with creation. Both of the healer classes. Maids can heal as well as sylph can heal. Like, they're just very obviously active and passive counterparts of the same general power. Witches are never really associated with any kind of healing thing. But yeah. I believe me, people have sent me like things a million times, every kind of like active passive combo, and it's like, well, what about the evidence for this and this? And I'm like, sure, you could read those things in those ways, but I'm just saying there's giant mountains of evidence more for these other things, and that's why I prefer to believe the one with the most evidence. But I guess for people, it just comes down for personal preference, whether they think it's like maid heir or maid page or maid sylph, but I can't see it as anything other than maid sylph. Can I expand on air, void, air, space, just airs in general, or perhaps rogues and how they differ? Yep, I've done that. You can read my posts all about it. Like how Equius keeps his door locked during most situations. I don't really want to dwell on Roxy since I feel she's a touchy subject for me. I feel like I only lend my key to certain people at times. I think it also works well with water motif that void players seem to have. Yeah. Actually, instead of maybe doors and keys, motif can just be treasure chest instead. I think you're talking about void symbolism. I forget the context behind this. Like maybe you sent something else and I answered that and I just copied and pasted all of these things. I do that sometimes. People send me like 5 asks in a row and I'll just like, all in one ask, just copy and paste. Makes it easier. That's what I probably did there. Hey Dahni, I've been listening to you answer your questions in your inbox, and I had a question about the difference between active and passive understanding classes. Because you say that passive players have to kind of follow their aspect's natural course and understand it more intuitively, while active classes have more direct control and less intuitive understanding, and I was just wondering how this fits with Mage and Seer. Thanks, your blog is amazing, by the way. Thank you. I do have a way of how this works for Mage and Seer, and that's basically, so you're right, passive classes have less active power and control of their aspect and more intuitive understanding. Mages, as the active one, would have more active control over their aspect, but less intuitive understanding. And how this works for the mage and the seer is that mages have their own personal experience of the aspect. Their own personal, like, what a mage knows, no other mage will know. Not even a mage of the same aspect, because mages have their own unique personal experiences with their aspect, so they have their own unique personal knowledge and understanding of their aspect. They are the teacher. They are the scientist out in the field making observations. They are the creators of knowledge. Seers, on the other hand, are more like students. They learn from outside sources rather than internal sources. They don't have direct experience with their aspect. They learn from external sources, like visions, like books, like mentors, like teachers, like any number of things like visions. They learn from those things. So they have more intuitive understanding of what the aspect actually is, because the knowledge that a seer knows, any other seer of the same aspect could potentially also learn, because it's shared knowledge, because it's something like it's knowledge that is confirmed to be true kind of thing, right? Versus a mage, all they have to back it up is their own experience. They don't have like sources, they don't have like outside things going, yes, I can confirm that what you think is true. Mages can still be extremely accurate because they have extremely accurate experiences to do with their aspect, but they are still unique and personal to themselves, versus a seer, which is more shared knowledge, if that makes sense. In this way, too, mages have more active control over understanding of their aspect in general, because if all they have is their own self to back it up, then they can tell people and be like, hey, nobody knows and nobody has any sources on these things, but I can tell you that this is this thing. And they have more active control over that, because you don't know if a mage is lying or not, right? So they have more control over what knowledge, quotation marks, is in terms with other people. If they claim something to be true, there's no way to substantiate their claims, but there's no way to deny them either. So a mage has more control over the knowledge that is passed around. Versus a seer, on the other hand, if someone tries to go into it and find knowledge in their own way, they can verify the seer's claims. So they have less. So seers have less active control over what knowledge is and what knowledge can be shared, but they have more intuitive understanding of it. I hope that helped. That's kind of how I see it. Friend codes. Yep. I don't know if anyone's noticed this yet, but karmic retribution can be a pun. Karmic, comic sans. I have no clue what ramifications this might have, but I think it's something to do with sans having too much free time. Hey, welcome to the IN family. Cool. Oh, INTPs, yeah. I've seen a lot of INTPs on here think they're ENTPs. I mean, an INTP made a post about it and a bunch of INTPs responded in agreement, and they all kind of decided it was due to the, well, what if this tendencies that INTPs have? Yeah. Yep. Yeah, the INTPs are fun. I think I'm definitely an INTP, even just for the fact that I question myself in the ways that INTPs question themselves. I've seen a theory that an underpill HP stands for hope. I'm not sure how this fits with sleep or gaining above maximum HP, though, unless it's hopes and dreams thing. Any thoughts on this? Oh, hopes and dreams! I didn't think about that. That's clever. That's clever. And dreams literally restoring your HP, as in the Azrael God of Hyperdeath fight. I can dig it. I wasn't sold on that before, but you know what? Hope. HP. I can dig it. On your post about classes, you always mention a specific challenge related to each one and how a character succeeded or failed in that. Aridin being a failed prince because he let himself be destroyed along with his aspect. And I was wondering, does failing the challenge is the same thing as inverting or over-embracing? A direct result of that, or something entirely different? It's something that's kind of related to it. For instance, failing the challenge of your class means that you did not properly grow into it. And you can go either way, I feel like. You can either be disillusioned with your class spec and what it stands for and invert, or you can just fail your challenge in a different way and be like, well, you know what? Fuck you and everyone around you. I'm the only one who knows what I'm doing. Everyone else is wrong, obviously, so blah. And I feel like in that sense, Aridin was the over-embracing failure. He just decided, you know what, what everyone else thinks doesn't matter. I know what I'm doing, so fuck you and all of you. If you don't do what I want, I'm gonna die, and yeah. But it is related. It is related, sure. But it's the first challenge, so it goes in kind of like a linear kind of thing. So the first challenge you face is, can you live up to your aspect? Can you or class spec, sorry. Can you live up to your god tier? Can you do the things that your god tier states that you should be able to do? And completion of this challenge allows you to grow into your own and god tier. Failure of that challenge is inversion. Fail it because inversion is the not being able to find value in your own god tier. So if you fail to find value in your god tier, if you fail to find where your god tier is useful or successful or this, you invert. The second challenge on top of that is that now that you have your skills as a god tier and you understand that there's things that you can do you understand that there's things where you're not necessarily needed? Do you understand there's situations where other people have talents or skills in these areas that are better than you? And completion of this challenge is finding balance in your god tier versus just god tiering. So you're now a balanced, healthier, happy, healthier god tier person, because you understand that your own god tier has value and talents, and you understand that anything else in you, and especially your opposite, there are ways for that to be valuable and useful as well. So you find balance. Failure of the second challenge is what leads to over-embracing, because you have value in yourself, but now you failed to value other people. So now you're just going along with your own thing and just completely ignoring everyone else in the equation, and you're over-embracing. So that specific class challenge, the one where Aridin being a failed prince because he let himself be destroyed along with his aspect. He failed to be able to destroy. He just sort of like. It's tangentially related to that, but it's like he didn't become the prince that he could have been. He didn't reach his full potential in some way. So, and I just feel personally that the way that Aridin was, he was over-embracing rather than inverted. So it's connected. There's an idea there. It's connected, but yeah. I was wondering if the void aspect could also represent possibility or potential. Yes, since we have something that's hidden or full of nothing, then that can mean that anything could be there. Yep, infinite potential versus light's defined definitions. Roxy's power also to make pretty much everything she's stealing from the void, from ideas to make them real. And ideas and mind are both full of possibility and potential. Does this sound like it could be a voidy thing, or is it more hope mind? It's not limited to any one aspect, this idea. Void is definitely unlimited potential. Hope can also be unlimited potential. Life can also be unlimited potential. And they're very chaotic and full of possibilities and potential. But void is more like that philosophical idea of like unlimited, like, oh, anything could be there. Life is more the idea of like, I could do anything if I put my mind to it, anything at all. And then hope is just that's, again, connected to void, and it's like the connection between life and void is hope. And that's sort of like, here's the unlimited potential in theory and void, here's the unlimited potential in action in life, and hope is what brings those two together. And it makes like things that are possibility in theory possible in real life. But yeah, there's lots of things too that aspects, they just share concepts. They're not like limited in like hard strict lines and completely separate from each other. Like all 12 of them make the universe together. They're going to interact and like mix and like make primary colors with each other and all over the place. Yeah. Could you please elaborate on the main differences between the maid and the rogue? I always thought that these classes were pretty similar, since both deal with feeling inadequate with your aspect and letting others take it from them, and learning to take it back from themselves, so sometimes it just gets a bit confusing to tell them apart. Well, the rogue more focuses on that than the maid does. The maid is more, they take it for like a second, and they're just like, yeah, you know what, fuck you, I'm gonna go do my own thing and have fun over there in your corner. Bye, bitches. And like, they never feel that sense of like, low confidence and low self-esteem that a rogue does. A rogue, because like at the beginning of their like transformations, a maid and a rogue, well, a maid is more confident than a rogue is. And how do I word this? Like rogues start out giving it away to other people, saying, I can't deal with my aspect, so I'm going to let somebody else take care of it. And they truly, honestly believe at this point that someone else is better for the job. A maid is fighting people and trying to say, hey, I'm good at this job. Let me do it. Let me carve out my own independence. Let me do the thing. I know I can do it. And just not being let by the people around her. So it's different. Do you see what I mean? A rogue is not necessarily beholden to other people and being treated like a doormat by other people. They have self-esteem problems. A maid is trying to build esteem with their peers. Sort of external versus internal. But like a maid always knows that they can handle the job. There's never any doubt in the maid's mind that they know they're good for the job. They know they can do this. They have other ideas. They know they can create. They're just trying to get other people to acknowledge that. A rogue truly believes that they're just not the person for this job and they can't do it, despite what all their friends might be telling them. Like, no, you're good. A raid is like, no, man, I can't do this. And a rogue's growth comes from them understanding in themselves that, you know what, you can do this, and this is good. A maid's growth comes from being able to, I guess, show other people what they're made of, kind of. So it's kind of similar, but it's not actually that similar. Is it common for a thief to always want to be the leader, big decision maker, or just have a central and important role in general in their team? Or is that just something related to their aspect, like Vriska, Mina, or maybe a thief of mind? No, thieves in general, like, they just tend to be self-centered and egocentric, and that's not necessarily a bad thing either. They're just more focused on their self than other people, I feel like. It's just natural for them because they're hoarders, right, of their aspect, of things related to their aspect, of philosophical ideas in general. They want things for themselves first and foremost before they can think about other people. It's just the nature of who they are. So they always think that, or they can always think that they're the best person for the job in the current moment because that's just their natural default way of thinking about things. But not like a healthy thief will understand that, hey, I've got talents, but they understand that other people can do things too, and they know how to delegate work out to other people. An unhealthy thief is just like, everyone else is useless and only I can do anything, and like, you're all worthless, just leave everything to me. But yeah, I think it is pretty common to be like leaders, big decision makers. They just think that they naturally know how to do those things. Whether or not they do is dependent on the person, though. What do you think about the HP stands for hope points theory? I think it just stands for hope, actually. I've been convinced. Hope and dreams. Hopes and dreams. How would an over-embracing prince of any aspect act in general? Destruction. Pure destruction. They don't care about preserving things at all. They just see stuff has to be destroyed, so they're going to destroy it, and no one else is going to stop them. They're adamant in their way of thinking. They cannot be convinced by anyone else. They're very stubborn. They're just straightforward, carving a path, and no one can get out of their way or stop them from doing that. An over-embracing prince is like really hard to get off course because they have no respect for anything that a sylph represents, and a sylph can kind of represent a kind of like gentle nudging, meddling, like, hey, like try to convince you, like, maybe do this over this way. And it's just like, no, they can't be convinced, they can't be coddled, they can't be gently put into another idea. The only thing that could stop an over-embracing prince is like butting heads with another like person as solid as they are, but because they're a prince and they're over-embracing, that's going to be very hard to find. They will butt heads with everyone until they can't butt heads anymore, and that's very dangerous. I've been toying with the idea that in other timelines, Flowey decided to share the misery by trying to recreate the incident that made him soulless with other monsters, killing them and using their dust and determination to revive them. None of them ever managed to usurp control of the timeline from him, so they couldn't reset, and always returned to normal when Flowey went back to his save point. But how do you think soulless versions of the main monsters might act? Well, here's the thing. When Azrael, spoilers for Undertale, when Azrael was first turned into Flowey, he was the same. He had all his memories, he had his personality, he was fine. But he just found that when he got to his parents and, like, saw them crying and upset, he just couldn't empathize with them. He couldn't feel what they were feeling. So it confused them. So as a child, he had no reference for how he should act in those situations. He didn't have any memories, basically, of, like, how should I act in these situations, huh? And over repeated attempts at trying to reload the save, try again, for who knows how many millions of times, over time it eroded his sense of morals, because he no longer felt the reasoning behind morals and ethics, because he no longer had feelings. So, over time, this sort of just degraded him into, like, just doing whatever that he wanted to do, because he saw no reason to otherwise, because he felt no reason to otherwise. And includes all kinds of, like, morally and ethically dubious things. And that's why when, True Pacifist ending, when he finally got the souls and felt the ability to feel it again, he was reminded, he felt the core constructs of that. Oh, this is why we don't do bad things, because feelings, because you can empathize with people, because it hurts and it's bad and this and that. And as soon as you have that center again, you have your morals and your, like, ethics back again. So soulless versions of the main monsters, if they first become soulless, they might not act all that different, the same way that Flowey didn't act all that different. It's just, like, over time, if they care to think about it, they just lose their sense of, like, why am I even doing this thing? I can't feel what's wrong with other people. I can't feel what's wrong with myself. And someone else actually brought it too, like, they're like nobodies from Kingdom Hearts. But, like, reverse nobodies, almost, kind of. But yeah. I'm not sure, like, if the main monsters would act. I don't think they would act that differently, and I think this is just, like, the Underfell alternate universe, pretty much, like, if they all became souls. I'm having a really hard time figuring out if I'm an inverted thief of void or just a page of light, because I do enjoy being alone a lot and tend to hide stuff for no reason, but I've been looking into my long history of my sad attempts with communication or just talking in general. I have social anxiety. because others have been pushing me to fix that, including a person that stands out in my life a lot. Am I being pushed into the light too much, or do I belong there? That's a question of what do you think is healthier for you? Do you see void as a representation of like your perfect self, or do you see light as a representation of your perfect self? Do you want to be a thief of void? Do you want to be a page of light? You're already on the right track where you see you have both sides pulling you here and there, but you got to think about what is like what you would consider the most perfect version of yourself and your goals and what you want to be in life. If you say you're just being pushed into being social, into being extroverted by other people, and that's not necessarily what you feel is the healthiest for yourself, then that might be thief of void. But if you have social anxiety, or if you understand that communication and being with people and being center of attention is healthy for you, you just don't feel capable of it, then you would be a page of light who's inverted. And it just depends on you. I don't know really what else to tell you because I don't know you, but you have to think about that more. Just think about what you think is actually healthy for you. What you think is actually healthy for you, not what someone else thinks. Oh yeah, you think you feel more comfortable with void and being the quiet friend, but you've always been told by other people there's something wrong with that. Yeah, and if that's the case, then you feel more like a void period, just being pushed into light, and you're not feeling it. But you have to decide for yourself if that's actually true, if that's really like healthy for you. You know what I mean? It's a personal decision. I can't really do that for you. Have you ever thought that Pearl might be a maid or sylph of light? At first, she relied on Rose for her own importance and meaning before learning to stand out for herself. She also very much a control freak and interested in gem culture symbolism. Always goes on about how Stephen and Rose are the ones with the great legacy and destiny and stuff, very similar to Connie, who's a rogue of light. Well, she's definitely a light player. I agree with that. She's definitely a light player. Her class, though, it's difficult, because the more I see about her and the more my opinion of her, grows and changes, the more I see her as a knight, which is, really weird, because, that would make her a knight of light, and the thing is, I gave Knight of Light to Ruby as well. So it's just really interesting to see how the two of those interact. Obviously Pearl deals more with the knowledge and the symbolism part of it, versus Ruby more luck and agency and importance, but it's very interesting. I don't think creation class, though, fits Pearl. I'm beginning to see that Pearl didn't really create much. She learned to apply her knowledge. She learned to apply herself to new and different situations. She's a Pearl. She's a cast gem that's basically, they don't do anything, they hold people's stuff. But she turned herself into a fighter, a warrior, a knight, literally. And yeah, I think Knight of Light is the most accurate thing I could come up with Pearl at this point. And she does have that sort of she does have those knightly insecurities, that sort of idea of the knight, they feel insecure on the inside and they don't know what they're doing, but outwardly they pose this facade of competence, and they always know what they're doing. That screams Pearl to me as well. Yeah, I guess Knight of Light. It seems to be a thing, in Steven Universe for me, people sharing class specs, because I associate both Lars and Perda as different bards of heart. So I guess now Ruby and Pearl are different Knights of Light, so that's interesting to me. But I'm feeling more and more Pearl Knight of Light. Sorry if this has been asked before, but I'm curious how a rogue would invite theft through their aspect and thieves steal with their aspect in terms of personality and fleshy powers. The whole stealing the aspect part is easier to understand, and we've seen it in canon, Vriska stealing the light importance of everyone for herself, but theft through with aspect is a bit more complicated. Thanks for the explanation. Well, that's a pretty simple way to think about it. Use Vriska as an example of stealing with their aspect. So Vriska steals using luck. She steals using her own importance. She steals using her own agency. She steals using light. And that can be as simple as a thief with a flashlight flashing it into someone's eyes and stealing things while they're, disoriented from the light. That's one, flashy power personality way. It could be someone just, sort of roughhousing people out of the way, being like, hey, I'm more important for you, so I get this thing, not you. That's stealing with importance. But for rogue, inviting theft through their aspect, if you mean rogue of light, one instance is how Sheik does that? Sheik from Legend of Zelda has the Deku Nuts, just a flash and that's a distraction and they run away. That's inviting theft through light. Another way of inviting theft through light is a rogue could say, hey, you see that thing over there? That thing is super important. That thing is really expensive in gold. I bet it was worth a lot of money if you sold it, and that could get someone to steal it. That's inviting theft through aspect, specifically light, importance, and flashiness. So that's one way. And you just got to think about how they would use it in order to have the thing stolen. That's how you would think about it. Hi there, I love your theories and wanted your take on this. When Rose was in her grimdark inverted state, she gained powers that were very Witch of Void-like, or just voidy in general. So is it possible when someone inverts in a really extreme way, like they did, they get some of the abilities that their sub-role would have, but in a more uncontrollable or destructive way? Possibly. I'm thinking in Rose's case, since her inversion was really the only inversion where we saw her using like actual voidy things, it was because she inverted and then the horror terrors gave her some power. It was symbolic that she gained void powers, but she didn't gain void powers just because she inverted, if that makes sense. She inverted, and then she also, as a happenstance, happened to get a power up from the horror terrors. That's how I saw it. Because the other people who inverted in Homestuck, what's one? Aradia. She is a maid of time who inverted to a bard of space. As a robot, as a fairy, as a frog, she didn't really gain any spacey powers, but she did have a lot of spacey symbolism. Or, what's another one? Jane. Jane is a maid of life when she inverted into a bard of doom. She didn't really gain any doomy powers. She still had her life stuff. So I'm thinking that in Rose's case, it was more of a special case that she inverted, and she was a Witch of Void symbolically, so she had all the symbols of Witch and Void around her, but the actual voidy powers came from the horror terrors as like a random happenstance that just happened to affect her at the same time as inversion. That's what I think would happen there, because none of the other inverted cases in the stories got powers from their opposite aspect. So I still think if you invert, you're not gaining any new powers. You're just inverting and stuff happens to you. And Rose just happened to have gotten a voidy power up from horror terrors because horror terrors are associated with void, and she happened to have been fraternizing with the horror terrors at the time. The version of Dirk inside Ellie is AR, who's done some shady stuff. Shady stuff, well, puns. It seems to me that politics sort of falls along a hope-rage spectrum. It sort of seems like a manifestation of the yes-no, unstoppable force, immovable object relationship the aspects have. I'm not sure about politics, actually. Politics strikes me more as like a heart-mind thing, to be honest, because mind has to do with unanimous votes and discussion and being unbiased and thinking about things logically versus heart being very passionate about certain issues and being very biased towards particular things, and that strikes me more as like what politics actually is. Biased people and unbiased people, dispassionate people, people who don't care about government or people who don't care about politics versus people who care very much about politics and government, and it always gets inflamed as an issue whenever you talk about it. So I feel like if you're going to do politics anything, it would be heart and mind, not hope and rage so much, I think. Hope and rage is more like religious stuff, I feel like. Read your 7 Deadly Sins, Heavenly Virtues, a post about Undertale, and I'm now replaying the Paper Mario games because I distinctly remember that those games used light blue and dark blue instead of pink too. Oh, did they? Ooh. Oh, I want to... Oh, no. Now I want to get that game and play it again. I had Paper Mario the 1000-Year Door on the GameCube, and that was like my favorite one. But I don't remember there being like color-associated things in that one. Maybe it was a different Paper Mario game. Oh, I love Paper Mario. Hello, if a witch of mine goes grimdark, how would she act? I don't understand grimdark, and if you can explain it, it would make me very happy, thanks. Grimdark is just a very visual marker of like, hey, this person, they're not doing what Steve Rogers thought they would do. Like, they're not being the person that Steve Rogers knew they could be. They're just very unhealthy for one reason or another. Either they're inverting or over-embracing. But the visual, like, symbolism of grimdark, I think, with like the dark outline and the white eyes, that's just very visually reminiscent of, hey, you're being super unhealthy right now. Either you're inverting or you're over-embracing. I don't know if you've gotten this yet, but what would a fully realized Page of Void be like? I'm doing a fan venture, and one of the characters is a Page of Void and fulfills the class baked in Dream Bubbles, but I'm not sure what he would be like. Do you mean like if he did like the ball of aspect thing, like Irania made Jake do, or like a fully realized Page of Void? I don't know. It depends on what you want them to be, basically. I can't really write your character for you. But, if you want, like, an example of, like, their big, flashy, like, ultimate power, they could create a black hole. Because it's exactly what I think Vriska is going to do when she does an inverted thing. She's just going to intentionally create a black hole as she steals all the light from the green sun. I have a question regarding seers and their flashy powers. A seer has visions relating to their aspect from the aspect itself, right? But are they the only ones capable of seeing those visions, or can they show them to others as well? I suppose that would be more of a rogue thing, but I don't care. I don't know. Thanks for your answer. I think if a seer had visions in their own brain, they probably couldn't share it with other people unless they were like a seer of mind. That's the only exception I could think of. But if they got visions from, like, a crystal ball, say, like, or a different object related to the aspect, or from a mentor, then, like, you know, another person who just happens to be there at the same time could tag along and be like, they could see the same thing, or the seer could explain it to them, or, you know, that kind of thing. But if it was just visions directly in their head that only they can see, I think that only they could see it. But if it was, like, visions from a crystal ball, like, I think someone else, like, who happened to be there at the time that they did that would be able to see it as well. May not understand it like the seer does, but they could, like, see that it was happening. For mage, I was somewhat confused on where and how they know what they do. Like, seer gains info from a source or directly are this information and makes decisions, but how does the mage get this info? Thanks. Personal experience. Real world physical experience. Just living their life, doing things like a mage of space, you know, has professions with stuff to do with space, so they just go out and learn information from space and have their own personal, unique understanding of it. They're the field scientists. They go out into the field and they explore new areas related to space and relate them back to space, and as a result, they understand more space. They don't really, like Solix got visions from doom and death, but that was because he had a personal experience with doom and death and ghosts, which are symbols of doom, so it depends. If you want them to have visions, I don't see why you can't, because Solix did, but yeah. I'm starting to get, like, I can feel my throat actually getting very sore now, and I have been talking for about an hour, so I might just leave that there for now, give myself a rest, and continue this at a later time. So I've been talking for a while. I hope info and opinions, you know, talking, made everybody happy, and they liked listening to my voice, so yay. Oh man, no, my voice is starting to hurt now, though. So yeah, see you later. I don't know when I'm going to do this again. Probably not till after my schoolwork is done, guaranteed. I only did it this weekend because it was Good Friday and I had a day off extra, so I was like, oh, might as well. But yeah, first available, like, the next time I do this might literally not be until, like, April 30. So, somewhere around the end of April, maybe. Or if I have... Well, let's see. April 13th is a Wednesday, and I'm usually very free on Wednesdays. I may or may not live stream my reaction to the update, and we'll see how that goes. Maybe. That's no promises, but that might be fun. I don't know. I don't know. When I react to things, I'm not really much of a reactor. I silently absorb and analyze in my mind. And I'll say what I'm thinking, I guess. It might be fun. But yeah, bye-bye.